Bonjour, Rachel.
Bonjour, Angela.
Hello.
Welcome to Giants of the Earth Heritage Center, everybody. We are preparing something very special today that is not Norwegian, but shares the same color in the flag, as you can see. We are on a journey to France with Angela Denstad, and she's going to teach us all about
Buche de Noel, which is a classic French Christmas cake that's made to look like a Yule log. And it's typically made with a genoise, which is a kind of a sponge cake. A genoise is a foam cake, so this is a flourless chocolate cake that gets all of its structure from beaten eggs.
Yum.
And as a very French thing, the genoise is all about technique. It's making something magnificent from just a few humble ingredients, just by the way in which it's made, which is pretty special. So most people know of foam cake as an angel food. That's a style of foam cake that just uses egg whites. Here, we're going to start by beating the egg whites separately with a bit of sugar. We're then going to beat the egg yolks with some sugar until they get incredibly foamy and thick. And we're going to add in our chocolate, fold in some cocoa powder, and we'll end up combining the two together. So we get the lightness from the beaten egg whites and the richness from the yolks together. We'll bake that in a sheet pan, and that will be the base for our Buche de Noel.
And again, that's called genoise.
Genoise,
Okay.
yes. So it's a kind of foam cake that is popular in France and in northern Italy. In fact, it's named for Genoa, the city in Italy.
Okay,
So,
grazie. So what should we do here at this stage?
so once we have our cake baked and cooling, and we have it rolled up to give it its shape that we ultimately want to have to look like a Yule log, we need to fill the cake. And so the genoise, chocolate genoise, is going to be filled with a traditional French buttercream. So this again starts with some tempered beaten egg whites and sugar, not too dissimilar from a 7-minute frosting, without any additional water added to it. If you are sensitive to egg whites, you can always use pasteurized liquid egg white product if you're worried about using fresh eggs for this. But once we beat the egg whites with some sugar, we add in a lot of butter here.
Oh, my favorite thing.
So, and the butter, then you add it in bit by bit, and it gets nice and creamy and thick. So you can flavor this buttercream in many different ways. For this Christmas cake, I like to use a little bit of orange zest and some fresh vanilla. So to zest the orange, we simply use one of these little rasp tools. I like to use it upside down so that I'm seeing the zest collect on top of the grater. And then I have a better handle on how much I'm actually getting.
Oh, that's beautiful, and it smells divine.
Right. So we're gonna add in some orange zest, zest from 1 or 2 oranges as your preference. Tap it in. And because this is Christmas, we are splurging on real vanilla. So, I'll give that a smell.
There's nothing like it, is there?
Right, and so all of those people who talk about plain vanilla have clearly not had the actual vanilla bean pod, which comes from an orchid, actually.
Oh my gosh, that's a wonderful way to use the culinary delight. How is it that even found out? Who figured out that the orchid creates vanilla? That's so beautiful.
So this seed pod of this orchid for vanilla, you'll want to just, I'm taking half because it's quite potent. And now I'm just gonna take a paring knife and I'm gonna just try and slit along it, as you can see, so that I can open it out. And inside then is where you'll see.
Ah, it looks like a little crystally syrup in there.
Yeah,
almost.
it looks like hundreds of little seeds. They're very small. You just need to open it up a little bit more. And then what we'll do is take the back of the knife and we'll scrape. And you can see all of these beautiful little seeds coming out. So the seeds are what we'll be using in our buttercream. And then you'll see, when you see a custard or something made with vanilla, when you see these actual little seeds, you can see them as they get stirred in.
Oh, yes.
Then you'll know that it's actually got real vanilla in it. Okay, so first we're going to take a look at how our cake came out here. It's baked and rolled and chilled.
Ooh.
And this is
And it hasn't cracked at all.
yeah, we did
Except
pretty
just that
well
little bit.
here. So now I'm going to go ahead and fill the cake still on the clean, permanently cocoa stained dish towel. All right, so now we're going to just start spreading our filling, and we're going to make sure that we keep a little bit of the edges clear, because as we roll the cake, it will squish out a little bit into the sides. I always like to make sure to get some of it way into the center of the roll. And this is another fun thing about this Yule Log cake, is this is meant to look rustic, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It's more about the joy of making it and the beautiful flavors. So we're not going for perfection here in our decorating, just kind of evening things out here. And we are now ready to roll. So this time we'll leave that dish towel behind, and you can see that rich cocoa that was coating the dish towel that helped to keep the cake from sticking. Now we have a filled Yule Log ready for our platter. Now, I always like to give it a little nuance here. So I'll cut the cake at an angle, and then I like to use this little cutoff piece. You can see our beautiful rolls. I like to mount this here as a little branch or side bit of the Yule Log. And we'll get this to stick on by using our ganache, which is the next thing to look at. All right, so now we're working with our ganache, which I pre-made and let it set up. So ganache is a lovely frosting just with chocolate and cream. So if you're one of those people that just likes frosting that's too sweet, I always say get a nice bittersweet chocolate and make ganache, because it will be more rich than sugary. All right, so we're gonna just put a little here and see if we can stick this little section of our log right to it. Now, again, this is more rustic in look. It doesn't need to be perfectly smooth. We're trying to get this to look like a log. So it's really quite fun. And the more little cracks and crevices, the more realistic it looks here. So as you can see, some of that tree bark texture is what's going to really make our Yule Log look like it's straight from the forest. You can choose to leave the end open or you can fill it in. I have enough ganache, so I'm gonna go ahead and just coat that because it will help the cake stay fresher longer to seal in the moisture. All right, I think get a little ganache on the end. And I think we've got the whole thing fairly well covered. And again, you'll notice that just the natural texture tends to be what works the best. So don't overwork the icing at all here. Just let it be. All right, and this is my traditional platter, thrifted, and I just think it's perfect for a Yule log. So we'll just go ahead and plate our Yule log right where it's going to be served. So to candy the cranberries, I just made a simple syrup, which is a 2-to-1 mixture sugar to water. So brought it to a boil on the stove and then turned it off the heat when it was fully boiling, poured in my cleaned and picked over cranberries, and just let them soak in that syrup for at least 24 hours. Then you can go ahead and drain them and then let them dry out a little bit until they're just tacky to the touch. Once that happens, you can roll them in granulated sugar and then they look nice and sparkly and they're a fun sweet tart treat. So our last garnish are little mushrooms. So these were piped just from a piping bag and just a basic meringue. Again, beaten egg whites with some sugar. We piped them into rounds and stems. So to assemble these little mushrooms, we're just gonna take one of our stems and trim it off. And then we're gonna just spread on a little bit of ganache. I'm gonna put a little bit on our stem. I'm gonna put a little bit on our cap, and you can get artistic with this as well too, making this ganache look like the gills of the mushroom underneath. But just make sure that you have enough so that you can sandwich this in so that it's not going to come apart. And here we've made a little mushroom. So he can sit on the, on the cake or near the cake. You can also use these to fill out a cookie platter or anything fun like that. So again, it's just a simple cut off a bit of the top so that you have a flat place to attach your stem to your mushroom cap. And again, you can use the tines of a fork to make the mushrooms look like they have gills if you want to do that. And then again, just a little bit on the top here, enough to be able to attach that together. And here's another little mushroom. And these meringues dry at a very low temperature in the oven for about 2 hours. So it's just a matter of drying out the meringue. but then they also will last. If you make a batch early, they'll last you for the whole holiday season. You can also make these look a little bit more like true field mushrooms. I just rubbing on a little cocoa powder if you like, makes them look a little bit more realistic. And again, you can plate these up any way you like. You can make a little or a lot. You can cover the whole thing with mushrooms if you like. At this point, I think we're ready to just do our final decorations. I like to use some of the mint leaves and the cranberries just as kind of a hollyberry type effect. You might need to use a little bit of ganache here, depending on how things stick for you. You can just kind of dab a little ganache on your berries, enough to give them a little bit of hold. And again, this is no set rules for how to decorate your Yule log, so by all means, little hands can help. Kids sometimes find this really fun, and it's a really nice thing for them to do when you're not going for perfection here, you're going for fun and having it look realistic. So here's an example of what your finished Yule log might look like.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We should probably learn how to say both thank you and Merry Christmas in French. So how can I thank you properly in French?
Merci.
Merci.
Okay, and Joyeux Noël tout le monde.
Joyeux Noël tout le monde. Au revoir.
Au revoir.